Hey everybody, Brian Stevens here, and next week I'm flying down to the CUBE conference, the National School Board Association conference, and I'm giving a speech on a case study of what happened in Miami-Dade and their student recruitment methodology and their results. And I thought, wow, it's a really good case study. It was a lot of fun to work with Miami this past year, and I thought, well, I've got to practice the session anyway. So why don't I go ahead and practice right now and let everyone have these lessons. So I think if you've seen any of my training courses, you already know that I don't read no PowerPoint. You don't have to worry about that one bit. But I do like the visuals because it kind of helps pace me. And these slide deck will be attached to this course along, I assume, with a certification test too. So let's get into it a little bit, shall we? So, the cow. I got the cow up first. I'm going to get to the cow. But I'm not going to talk about this crazy cow right now. Let's kind of make sure that we're staying. I'm going to get to that cow, but I think it might be a little too soon. So anyway, the entire topic of this is the wrap-up report that we provided in Miami-Dade, who is one of the many school districts that we actively work in conjunction with, as partners with their team to recruit and keep students in the face of increased competition. So, but before I get to it, this story is the one that's on my mind right now. Now, some people know what this is. And the people that know what this is are not as smart as the people that do not know what this is. And the people that know what this is know that there's a travesty, a problem that occurred. And it's right here, if you don't know, but this is a tractor motor. And what I mean by smarter is I do my own maintenance on my tractor because I'm not very bright and I'm stubborn. And for some reason, I feel like I got time to be out there changing filters and doing million stuff. And so I started at noon this past Sunday, and I'm going to change filters. I'm going to wash the tractor. I'm going to have a nice afternoon, be done by 2 o'clock, 2 hours, give or take. Well, fast forward 7 hours later. And I could not get this is a fuel filter right here. I couldn't get it off to save my life. I couldn't get it off. I mean, I put a tool on it. I put a torque wrench on it. I got an impact wrench. I went to AutoZone twice that day to get different tools to try to get this bleeping filter off. And I put it on like this, and you got an impact wrench that goes da 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 da, and it didn't move. And the last thing that I could think of was what you do is you take the filter and you jam a big screwdriver all the way through it, and whatever's in it, if it's oil or fuel, it pours out all over you. And I mean, diesel fuel, it's a diesel tractor, poured all over me, and I still smell a little bit like diesel, just in case you're wondering, right? I'm still stinky a little bit. So I shoved it in there, and I twisted it, and I had somebody out there saying, "Why don't you cut the fuel filter off?" Because I didn't think of that, because I said I wasn't that smart. But anyway, so the diesel's pouring all over me. I jammed that big screwdriver in, and I wrenched it, and all it did was destroy the outside of the filter. Meanwhile, this connection is still completely attached to the tractor and stuck on there. Well, what do you do when you're at this kind of impasse? Do you light the tractor on fire and call the insurance company? I thought about it. Do you call your friends? Maybe, if they know any other way to do it besides you. Or you do the worst thing that any man can possibly do when you're completely humbled and disgraced. You call your father-in-law. So I call my father-in-law. And I always call him Dad when I've done something that I need his help with. So, Dad, I sent them this picture, and I said, what do you think? And Dad, Curtis, said, I'll be over at about 5 o'clock tomorrow. Click. He's a farmer. He's farmed his entire life. He knows tractors. He don't talk much. And I was embarrassed, so he comes over the next day at 5 o'clock, and my hands are cut up, and I still stink of diesel, and he makes a comment about that, by the way. And he goes, He looks at it, don't say much. He gets a acetylene torch out, heats that sucker up. Now, you scientists out there figured out what's going on, right? Heat will make things expand cold will make things contract. Now, he got a 10th grade education, 11th grade education. I think that's as far as they went back then. I got a doctorate degree. I got a master's degree. I didn't think of it. I didn't think of this innovative idea of heating this thing up, having it expand, and he went bam, bam, bam after that, and it spin off. And I was like, thanks for the knowledge, Dad. Appreciate it. So it got me thinking about this company we have, where we recruit students and work to keep students in the face of competition and all the innovative things that we've had to learn and put together in order to make it work right. And it's really fun for me because we get our background at our company from issue campaigns. I'm not going to get into politics. Don't worry about that. There's not going to be any politics, right? But we get into we run issue campaigns. We run them all over the country. And you got to get voters to do something. You got to get voters to make a choice, right? Do you want to pick this or you want to pick that, right? And we bring all this innovative ideas to like recruitment and grassroots organizing and all this. But the really fun part about this job is all the stuff we learn from different school districts. And I mean, we've learned stuff from Fort Bend. They've been with us for a lot of years, Memphis Shelby County Schools, and in Miami. We've been working with Miami now, and I've learned some innovative, very cool things from them too. And it's this collaborative effort that allows us to get really awesome results. And that's kind of what I want to address with you today is what were the fundamentals? And this is going to be like, look, I like telling a good story as much as the next person, but we're going to nerd out. We're going to scientific it out a little bit, and we're going to kind of get into the meat. So I'm going to try not to bore you. But it's going to give you some data, some key points that you can utilize in your schools literally tomorrow that will help you keep and recruit more students. And so that's my goal for this section. I know we have other courses on this, but this is an actual case study on Miami, and I'm going to give you hard, real numbers of what occurred. All right? So let's what I'm not going to do in this time together is explain about all the different competitive elements that exist out there. I mean, 100 years ago, you had a choice. No school, public school. Then private schools came along. But now, I think we get it. Charter schools, home schools, virtual schools, competition is amok. And I always hate to describe it this way, but I'm going to do it over and over and over again. The money follows the student. So we've got to be competitive. Miami understood that. Miami had lost, just like many, many gigantic school districts, small school districts, competition. And their student counts started tapping down, which affected their overall budget, which affected people's jobs and their ability to teach their students. So we exclusively represent only the best school districts that represent children, and that is public schools. I'm not going to debate it. I'm not going to debate with you. It is public schools provide the best education globally, universally to the most students. And that's why we only represent and work with traditional public schools, because we think you to bomb. Like, we love you guys, right? And I think you're doing yeoman's work without enough resources. So our job is to bring more resources to you. So I'm not going to get into the data points. It's here. It's on the slide deck if you want to look at the trends of charter schools and virtual schools and all that stuff. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And we have some other courses on that too, so you can check that out if you want to. But I'm not going to get into our annual poll, but I did want to hit this one data point. We do an annual poll, and let me change this a little bit so you can read this whole slide deck. Maybe we do an annual poll where we ask, what are parents thinking about doing? Are they likely to move or change schools? Are they thinking about changing schools? And if so, what makes them want to change a school or not change a school, right? Like, what are the driving factors that makes them make the decision? So we know that over the years, it's right now it's around 40% universally nationwide of parents that are considering changing schools next year. In urban areas, it's over 50% because typically there's more competition. So that number's been slowly ticking up over the years. And so parents are thinking about moving. They're thinking about whether or not they want Coke or Pepsi. Do they want to go to McDonald's or Wendy's? Do they want to go to virtual or traditional or charter? People have a buying decision. And I just want you to make sure that stays put. Miami was very aware of this. They'd had trends over the last couple of years of that competition coming in and affecting their bottom line. And so they decided to do something about it. And Miami is a big district. I think it's the fourth largest in the United States. 331 students. It's big, 423 schools. And if you show up in Cube next week in Miami, or if you're watching this 3 months from now, if you showed up to Cube, you're going to hear a little bit more about Miami's innovative steps, the programs they did that worked in conjunction with ours, because that was a pivotal part, by the way, all of it working together. I'm going to focus on the two aspects, on two aspects of this global campaign for you today. I'm lucky enough, I've got one of my awesome teammates right over here to play off of, Kayla. So if you see me kind of looking at her, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure that I'm not losing her attention, because I feel like if I'm losing her attention, she said she was tired right before this, I'm probably losing your attention too. You still awake? You with me? Mm-hmm. She said, which I don't know if she's still awake or not. So I'm an old soldier, a lawyer background. I like to be very systematic in our approaches to running campaigns. So we use a methodology called the Marcy model, and it's M's mission, A is what the activities are, R is the results, and that's got to be a number, by the way, not a feeling. Results are numbers. Numbers is math. And then a SWOT analysis, which you all may have heard of, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then I is what improvements are we going to do next time. Today, I'm going to focus on the MAR part. What was the mission? What were the actual activities that were conducted by number, and what were the results? So you can start to theorize about what you can do in your own area. I'm not going to get into the SWOT analysis, the strengths and weaknesses of that campaign, or the improvements, because frankly, we still have to sit down with the district and really, that's a collaborative effort to figure out what can be adjusted next year. And I do think it's important that when you start to talk about the improvement category, try to look for 5, 8, 10% improvement. Don't try to look for perfection. And when you look for perfection, you end up not getting anything done. So I just remember, incremental improvements every year will get you so far in life in everything you do. And that's just a proven commodity. Perfectionism, it's this old phrase. Are you going to let perfect be the enemy of better? Do you want to let perfect be the enemy of better? I don't. I just want to get better because I don't believe that anything's perfect. Sorry for you people that think you're perfect. I'd love to meet you. I ain't one of them. I'm just looking for a little bit better every year. But we're going to focus on the mission, the activities, and the results. And that's going to be your awesome case study. So the mission, pretty simple. With increased competition, Miami-Dade said, we're going to implement an innovative approach to get more students and to compete actively. No surprise there. The really cool thing was they actually did it. So we had a great leadership team. Everything from the school leader, the school board, to awesome team members working with us. Tammy Reed's going to help me co-present this when we do it live. And here are a couple of our team members that we're helping lead it. And this is my partner and the president, Adrian Bond. I'm going to try to get him to do some courses too, so you don't just hear me on these training sessions. And Rashee's got some pretty good courses also. So breathe for 8 seconds. 3-legged stool to this campaign methodology. There are 3 main components. The internal programs that Miami-Dade did, the grassroots campaign to bring in students, and then a complementary training program of about 800 people that we did in the district with principals and frontline workers. And Miami-Dade also trained other people in some different courses too. Once again, I'm not going to talk about the internal programs. I would say that some of the things Miami-Dade did is they have a team and they're being purposeful with recruitment and keeping students. So I think that was a good first part. They also streamlined some of their enrollment processes. And I know you got state laws and you've got to worry about the state law issues and stuff. But they also actively continue to try to improve and refine things. And one of the things that we find in a lot of districts is if you do a grassroots campaign or a marketing effort, whatever, to get students to come in, and the front desk people aren't trained to handle it, or you don't have enough people to take the enrollments. Like you don't have enough people to fill out the paperwork and to assist them on the back end. It all kind of collapses. And Miami-Dade just kind of kept improving and making sure they had the appropriate resources to secure and land all these students. So once again, I may do an update on this after I really talk with Miami-Dade about their internal programs, but let's keep going so that this doesn't turn into like a 4-hour with Brian on these campaigns. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is the grassroots campaign. And every campaign, don't worry, I'm not going to read this slide to you. I mean, oh, that's a lot of information. It was kind of a whole pattern because I think a lot about buyers' decisions. I know it's weird to think about parents as buyers, but they are now, right? Because they have a choice. They can choose A or they can choose B. And just like you as a human being can choose different things. So what makes a person choose one restaurant over another restaurant, pick one car over another car, pick one school over another school? And there's a typical pattern when it comes to buyers, and this is it, and this will be on your slide deck if you want to read all this stuff. Instead, what I'd rather do is tell you a story instead of reading all them what is it, 6 points? Was it 6 points, Kayla? Mm-hmm. 6, it was 6 points. I'm not going to read you the 6 points. Instead, I want to talk to you about a cow. And the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I mean, look at that. That cow thinks that that grass over here is better than that grass over here. And look how hard that cow was working to get the grass on the other side of the green fence, or on the other side of the fence. And I think, let's take one analogy. Let's take restaurants. I don't know why I'm thinking about food right now. But I always think about food. Let's think of food restaurants. So you got a regular place that you dig to go for breakfast. Maybe they got good Bloody Marys. Maybe they got good pancakes, and you go. But then a new restaurant opens up 3 or 4 blocks away. What do you do? What do you do, Kayla? What do you do? You're gonna go. You're gonna go try it out. You're gonna go try that restaurant out, and they're gonna use marketing, and they're gonna have signs, and they're gonna have. It's going to be revamped and it's going to look awesome, and you're going to try it and it's awesome, and you go. Now, 1 or 2 things happens after that. You either keep going to that restaurant. You decide, maybe it's 3 things. It's really 3. It used to be 2. You stay and you keep going to that restaurant, and the old one, golly, the furniture's not quite as nice as it used to be, and the pancakes are pretty good. Maybe you go there instead of twice a month. Now maybe go there once every 3 months. You just kind of you do that, but you like the ambiance of the new place. It seems fresher and cleaner, and the staff has just been trained, so they're all a lot nicer than that waitress you've been over there that kind of takes you for granted because you come in every week, right? And then so you start to go to that place, and then now what happens is another new restaurant opens. So you don't always necessarily go back to your old place. I mean, if this new place is garbage, you will. But now another new place. And, new shiny object. New shiny object. Grass is always greener. Try something new. People love to try something new. That's why they always do in marketing and promotions. New and improved. What's new and improved? We don't know either, but we want you to come back and keep trying it, so we have to say it's new and improved. Kayla probably doesn't remember the new Coke. That failed miserably. Terrible idea. It was gross. And so new and improved. And so when you're thinking about a parent's buying journey, grass is always greener. What entices them back to you? What brings them, after they start looking around, remember 40% in some urban areas, 50% of the parents are already thinking about trying that new restaurant, that new school out. And now they got choices. It was private schools. Oh, new shiny object. Charter schools. Ooh, new shiny object. Home schools. New shiny object. Virtual schools. I don't know what's next, but we got a lot of shiny objects. We got a lot of fields with the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. So think about that journey and what brings them back. And what we've learned is sometimes you got to freshen up your restaurant. Sometimes you got to get people retrained. Sometimes you got to become enthusiastic again about what you're doing. And I know that it's hard when budgets are cut there's a little bit of depression maybe in your team. The team spirit's not quite there anymore because you just don't have that energy for winning that you used to have because you're getting attacked on all sides, and it's not your fault. But I feel the pressure. I think it was Jack Welch. I love this. It was funny what he did. It was funny because it was so brilliant. When he took over GE, I think this was in the early 80s, and when he took over GE, he knew he had to cut 10% of the workforce. He had to do it. They weren't going to survive. What did he do? He cut like 18, 20% of the workforce. And he immediately started hiring. And he knew that immediate start to hire would boost energy. And people, instead of this slow drip campaign of we're going to fire 1%, 1%, 1%, and everyone's just waiting for their next to get cut off. That is a terrible leadership style. Liquidate, then build. Now, I don't want you to fire anyone. That's not my point, okay? But my point is that sometimes you have to kind of rebuild. You got to kind of rebuild. You got to kind of start fresh and kind of have a new positive attitude that you can crush it. And I'm telling you right now, you're better than they are. From God, I shouldn't say it that way. I don't want to get struck dead, but I believe it. I believe it. You are better. I've looked at the data. I've looked at the statistics. I've looked at how they market, how they reach all your competition. I think you're the best thing for the actual child. And I wish you could be even harder and you didn't have helicopter parents and what do they call them, lawnmower parents, and they just mow everything down in front of the child so the child has no resistance. I know you're dealing with all those tough issues for sure, right? But you're the best, and I want you to start believing you're the best, and I want to start to revamp your culture so that you start to believe it. And some of you do, but we got to bring all the team members up so they feel like they're the best, right? So we got to kind of start fresh. I was thinking about a friend of mine that has a great pub, and it's always full, and he's always got people in it, and he shut it down for a month and cleaned everything up and redid it. You can't do that necessarily, but I was like, why do you do that? And he goes, because, man, you got to stay with the times. New places are opening up all the time. Anyway, just think about that buyer's decision as we go through the rest of this. So, next thing we're talking about is that middle bucket, the actual grassroots campaign. I moved it. I don't know why I moved it. But it's the student recruitment bucket, and that's one of the services we offer where we recruit students to your district. And it is not like, it's not marketing. I need to be really clear. I ain't talking about marketing. There is certainly art and science. There's certainly art and science. So see the art's hidden? Okay, great. I still am never quite getting all this technology right, but listen to me. Don't worry about the slides too much. So the art and science of any campaign, there's certainly a creative aspect, but there's got to be science. There's got to be math involved in it. And there was an old adage that came out. I don't know when this came out, maybe the 70s, where they would say, half of all advertising is wasted. Half. We just don't know which half. Ugh. I mean, that breaks my heart because with data and science, you don't have to guess what's working and what's not working. Anyone that cannot show you, this is probably your first pro tip. If the people that are communicating out can't say where the money's going and what the effort's going and what the results are, what the key performance indicators are, I'm going to recommend you scrub it and start over. Like, I'm not saying that they're not the right people to get it done, but you've got to hold people accountable, right? And the phrase is not, accountability partner. It's called management. You got to manage these things, right? And all too often we're like, oh, we're going to do digital ads. Oh, we're going to do billboards. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to, we're going to run TV spots. We're going to put up signs at bus stations. Well, what's the return on investment for that? Well, I'm going to explain to you how we do it. Maybe you can take something away from it. First thing, let's talk about the art. And in this particular campaign, there were 5 big buckets. I know I'm getting really nerdy with you. I'm getting really data heavy. I'm not gonna beat the tar out of all these. We have an entire training course on making the ask. If you want to learn why making the ask is so important and so vital, that is the coup de grace. That's the close, right? You can go watch that course. We have another course on providing great tours that welcome people and all that stuff. Like we call it a blue ribbon tour to really entice people. Because trust me, your competition is doing some blue ribbon tours. Now, every single time I talk about tours, somebody says, we don't have the resources. We don't have the money to do great tours. I know. I didn't ask for perfect. 5% better than what you're doing. 8% better than what you're doing now. That's all I'm talking about. Take some of the pressure off, all right? And the marketing, I'm not going to talk about the marketing pieces today either. But let me give you your next pro tip. I think is this number 2? Mm-hmm. This is number 2 for pro tips according to Kayla. So the next pro tip is you got to have a marketing piece. You got to have a one-sheeter, one piece of collateral that says, yo, this is why we rock. This is why we're awesome. And they need to be at the front desk. So when a person comes in for a tour to talk to the school, you give those away. You give that to them. I'm shocked on the schools that, one, don't have anything to like say how awesome they are. And 2, when they make those pieces, they don't give them to anybody. They hoard them. In my live training courses, I really, really pump that piece. And we do role playing and interactive training. We teach people to give those pieces away, that they're not gold. You need to burn them up. You need to use them. But I am going to talk about these. I am going to talk about these first 2 buckets. Kind of briefly, but not too briefly. I know. You could pause and come back and still do this course. I always hate when I get super data heavy instead of story time. But man, I think you're going to get some value out of these messaging points here. So we get our messaging points based on our annual poll. I mentioned the annual poll that we do either in, I'll tell you, nationwide, in almost every school district, the top 3 fundamental things that people care about the most. This says 4 driving points, but one of them was based on COVID, and so I removed it. It's really 3 that are consistent for year after year after year. I want to know my child's going to be successful. I want to know my child's going to be safe. And I want to know what's going on. That's it. Now, the nuances in those 3 points are great and wide depending on what the district is, where you are in the country. You know, that really does get very, very specific based on your own community. But nationwide, and think about this, especially the younger children they got to know their babies are safe. Safety used to mean safe from bullying. Then, unfortunately, it became safe from gun violence. Then it became like safe from COVID. Now it's safe from gun violence again. I mean, it's awful, but they want to know their babies are safe. And when it's funny, when we start secret shopping schools, the number of schools that don't have security and the people can just kind of wander in, parents notice those things. They notice when you don't check IDs. You know, they don't want it to be a prison, but they do notice whether or not people are paying attention to or not. So, but also in our messaging points, do we talk about safety? Do we talk about success? Now, we get to success. I don't know what success means to the parents, but you don't have to know. They internally already know what they want for their children. Maybe it means college. Maybe it means trade school. Maybe it means just moving out of their house, right? Like, that's successful to me, that you're doing something and you're happy, right? And then you got to communicate this. So when you're drafting message points, and we talked about that collateral piece, that marketing piece, your websites, you should have your messaging points on those documents. And you should sell it. So here's a great example that Miami-Dade used. And this is the messaging system that we use. 3 message points of no more than 21 words each. Once again, I have a whole course on messaging. I mean, we do I think a 4-hour just workshop on messaging. So I can't get deep into it, but there's so much science behind the human brain can remember 3 things at once before it uses it or loses it. So if you got a piece of collateral that has 8 points on it of why you're awesome, they're not going to remember it. The people you're training are not going to remember it. And I know, I've heard it a million. That's an exaggeration. I heard it lots. The people say, it's all important, Brian, but not to your audience. Your audience cannot consume everything you want to tell them. So you have to get the red pen out. And you have to cut down to 3 points. Please cut down to 3 points because they can consume it. And you can be in control of that narrative. So why 21 words? Kayla was like, why 21 words? Well, I'm going to tell you, Kayla. Because 21 words is about the time period for a soundbite, like an elevator speech. And I've heard people say, what's your elevator speech? What's your soundbite? 21 words is about 14 seconds. That's about all the time you have. So each messaging point would be up to maximum of 21 words. So I guess that would be 63 words maximum, but in 3 points. But shorter is better. Less is more. In this case, they hit this one. Students will be fully bilingual and bicultural. That's great. That was one particular elementary school. And the funny thing is that I thought that surprised me. Bilingual wasn't in English and Spanish. It wasn't in English and Mandarin until the most principal languages in the globe. It was English and French. Super cool, man, because it was special. It was a competitive advantage. I thought that was dope. I thought that was neat. And so their next message point for that one was, be students will be fully bilingual and bicultural in French. If that's what you want, you have a school for you. The safe one is they just look, they're hitting these two message points is safe, nurturing environment. They're letting you know that safety is important to them. That's all this message point does, guys. Is it just, you don't have to be we're going to make sure, I'm a lawyer, for God's sakes. I'm not going to get you to promise that you're going to keep everybody safe. There's no promises here. But you're going to let them know it's important to you because it's important to them. And that alone goes, good, safety is important to them. By the way, if you blank this out right here, you cannot assume that they're going to assume that safety is important to you. You have to actually use the words. And so I'm a big proponent of every 3-2-1 message system for a school to have safety somewhere in one of the message points. Maybe it's the first, maybe second, or maybe the third, but it has to be in there and you have to use the words. Your child's safety is our top priority. Not, we will ensure your child's safe. I'm not asking for those extreme cases, but safety is vital. They just want to know. I keep saying this to you because people will say, well, of course safety is important to us. What do they think we are? Man, it's marketing. They got to hear the words. You don't get to just rest on your laurels anymore. You got to say the damn words. And then the last one is, and this one example I found, it said, your students, and they were a little longer than this, but your student will achieve their maximum potential. Well, shoot, Kayla, that's about their success. And people can surmise what that means, and you can have more descriptives when you meet with them about what are those things, what does actual safety or maximum potential mean. There's lots of ways to carve it up. But fundamentally, 3 message points that hit those top 2 drivers and something special. So I like the top 2 drivers for every individual school, not district, but individual school, and then something special. In this case, they bilingual. Another one I found was they had really neat, this is a Texas district, they had a really neat drone program. Like in the middle of nowhere, they were testing drones and teaching students how to use drones so they could work in Amazon warehouses, which is a really high-paying job in that area of the country. It was very rural. And they didn't think they had anything special. They didn't think they had any competitive advantage. I go, that drone program, what are these drones flying overhead? Oh, we're teaching our kids to use drones. I go, so you're innovative in technology. Let's write that down, right? So there's your message point chart. All right. So the other thing that I want you to think about that you can take back tomorrow is I want you to start to shop your own schools. We do secret shoppers where we send parents, pretend parents like Kayla, and they show up and they basically act like they're going to try to enroll or got information about the district they want. And we track 6 fundamental key elements here. And oh, by the way, I got a slide where you can read the details of what's in each one. So you can give this slide to your team and you can go start secret shopping yourself. So that's what we look at. But it's important that we personally will look when we secret shop how you're doing compared to your competition and how your schools compare to each other. And people don't start at an A. They start at a C and they get some points to go up or some points to go down. And so first impressions. Am I boring you yet, Kayla? You think people are still paying attention? Yep. She thinks people are still paying attention. Cool. I like it. So first impressions. First impressions matter. What do they see when they walk in? It doesn't have to be a new building, by the way. Is it clean? Does it have rat traps up by the front door? Did you hide the rat traps around? I went to one school district and I don't know why I can't forget this. I probably talked about it in other training courses where the teachers are smoking cigarettes and you can see them when you park. And the superintendent goes, we don't have any smoking sections. I was like, okay, can you move the smoking section to the back? But we don't allow smoking on campus. Yeah, okay, I got it. But can you move it around the back? I'm just a realistic dude. control that people might go sneak off and smoke a cigarette. Like, I don't smoke, but I didn't say I approved it. I didn't say I gave them permission, but that is what they did. And that was the habit in that school. And I'm like, at least don't get caught. Okay? Like, don't let parents come in and go and see that stuff, right? We've been to school districts that we secret shopped, and man, the teachers and the front desk people are complaining about students right there in front of the families, which makes it hard to keep families if they think all you're doing is complaining about them. Can you go in the back room and complain, please, behind a closed door, not front? So, first impressions, communication. Remember in the poll, communication was a very vital thing. And we try, how do you do on the phone? How do you do emails? How do you do on text? How do you correspond? Is it friendly? Is it, I'm sick of you? Do you treat the parents like a burden? And all that comes out, and then sometimes you can start to train around it. Enrollment process. Do you make them jump through 18,000 hoops? Or is it streamlined and beneficial to them? And you should look at that. It's funny, we found one district that, this has happened before. Another district pops in my head, where they made people like pay off their older siblings, library book, which was like $8, like late fees, or they wouldn't let them enroll. They made $7,800 per student, but they wouldn't let the student enroll for $8. I'll give you the $8. I will give you the $8. Take the $7,800 minus the $8. You got to streamline this stuff. We're in a competitive world. We can't make the enrollment process so bureaucratic and so complex that it drives people away. Understanding that we still have got to follow the law and get all those rules, but we can streamline. Hey, what's your website look like? That's your front door too. And in our secret shopper, we really dig around and have some protocols. I think I've already done a course on how to secret shop your school. There's a course on that, so and you can just go check that out. And we break this down in a little bit more detail. What's your overall district reputation, social media, things like that. And you can certainly look at this and make a decision on what if you want to go secret shop your own school. If you want us to do it, we are down to secret shop some schools. Like, that is a lot of fun. I love to secret shop some schools. But I encourage you to go secret shop each other's schools in your own district. So, once again, we're still in that grassroots methodology, and I'm going to tell you what the results are from that. But now we get into what we actually do. So, you got your message points based on the data. You secret shopped, you cleaned up the enrollment process. Maybe you planted a couple plants in the front of your school or whatever to make it look more attractive, cleaned up your website a little bit. And now we got to get into science. And what are we going to do in this particular campaign? And there is a methodology to this that we follow. But are you going to canvas? Are you going to door knock? Are you going to do targeted mail, email, social media? Because they're all options. The first thing you do is you look at your universe, your targets, and then you decide how you want to best communicate with them. And I'm going to tell you what we ultimately decided in this district worked for this district, but it's a little different in every place in the United States. And so in this particular regard, we started off with a list of almost 52,000 students that were available to recruit in the Miami-Dade thing, that were in the right age brackets. We didn't target high school seniors or juniors. They were pretty baked in. It's really hard to get them to switch, and even if you get them to switch, you only got a year or two to recoup on that stuff. So we started with a list of about 52,000, and through what I'm going to tell you next, we unqualified 17,000 of those people. So you're talking about emails, phone calls, text messages. Certain people had moved. Certain people said, I'm never coming back to Miami-Dade. Some people had already agreed to come back to Miami-Dade. So you just unqualify them because you're not worried about it. And this, Kayla, is one of the toughest things for people, is to let some things go. You can't get everybody. You just can't get everybody. And we got to get every student. That is called perfectionism. It does not exist in my opinion. I like better. I like better than yesterday, right? So we unqualified 17, ended up actively tracking 5,000, a little over 5,000. And you got to think about like a sales pipeline, right? They go from cold, initial outreach. Some of them you lose, unqualified. And then they go from kind of warm, they're kind of interested. Then you give them those talking points, you move them to, hot. And then you got to get all their data, you got to get all their information filled out. And then you got to make sure they actually enroll. Oh my God, it is difficult, but it can be done. It can be done. And so that's the pipeline. So really, it's just like a sales pipeline. And through all this effort, 648 students enrolled. New students enrolled, 648. Now, these are 648 students that we actually got their paperwork, all their information, and they agreed to it. Now, there are some in this 5,000 group that may or may not have enrolled, but we couldn't track it. So there's a residual effect that occurs through grassroots organizing. It wasn't 3 times the 648. I'd never seen that. But there's probably hundreds out there that went ahead and said they called and did, and they just never wanted to respond to the enrollment specialist calling them, and they enrolled. But 648 went through the entire pipeline and sat in a seat for 20 days at least, because that was the deal. They got to come and show up to school, and they got to be present. They got to, because that's how the school gets paid, right? 648. So it sounds weird. Like somebody would be like, only? What do you mean? I can't stand the word only. I can't stand it. Because once again, it's a person looking at the glass as half empty instead of 648. 648 equals in the state of Florida almost $5 million per year increased funding. $5 million of increased funding is not an only in my world. I mean, maybe Jeff Bezos or something, only $5 million. Well, for us, $5 million is a ton of jobs. It is a ton of new computers. It's a ton of, faculty improvements and staff and raises for our teammates. 600, that is very good math. And so don't get overwhelmed with you got to start with a big list and you whittle it down. And I was stoked over 648. It was the first year of this program. Too, and they're in the game now. They're in the game recruiting, and it's fun. So, in order to get to 648, and this is where the girth takes off. What were the activities? We sent 160,000 emails to that group of 51,000. So think about multiple emails, and then it gets more emails to less and less people as they go through the pipeline. Knocked on 3,300 doors. Just like a good old grassroots initiative. We made almost 13,000 phone calls, live phone calls from awesome salespeople that enrollment specialists that be like, hey, you responded to an email, you responded to a text, we think you're interested. Now, that's not one phone call per family. That's multiple phone calls because people don't answer the phone, you got to call back. It is a girth, but it can be done. And remember, almost $5 million, right? You got to put the activity. Almost 21, Kelly, is that right? 21,000 text messages? You guys are doing a lot more text messages than you used to, aren't you? Yeah, boy. 32 events, which included going to daycares and events and festivals and standing out there and just working it to death. There are other additional outreach things that occur, but these are the fundamental things that Miami-Dade had done. So, and I think that it's really important that at least from our company's perspective, the way we do it is, this is what I meant by the marketing dollars. If the student doesn't show up, we don't get paid. Right? That's because we understand that this methodology exists. We can price out how much 160,000 emails calls, 3,300 canvas, 12,000 of this, 20,000 of this, all this stuff. And then we get a piece, I think it was $800. I think it was $800 for per student that actually showed up. Now the school district gets over 7,000, and that student stays for multiple years after you get them. And so now they bag the student and get that 7,000 every year, and we take a little slice for that grassroots organizing for this activities. But it works for us, and this is what it takes. Man, you got to be in the game. And let me say this: there are going to be parents that get upset. Man, one thing I need to applaud Miami for. People are going to call up and complain. In Shelby County, all these districts we work with, people are going to complain. Why are you calling me so much? Why are you emailing me so much? Because we want you, because we love you, and we need you. And if you're not willing to bother people, you're not willing to be in the competitive game. You're going to have to bother people. But by and large, most of the people that complain go to school at your competition. They're not paying your bills. They're not paying your salaries. They're not paying for infrastructure. They're not a part of your solution. And now look, if they opt out and they say, don't bother me, those are all those unqualifieds, right? That's why you unqualify people. So, but you got to think about it like a sale. You got to think about getting that vote, and you got to be prepared for breaking some eggs and upsetting a little bit of people, because your competition's doing it. They are standing in your car lines. They are banging on their doors. They are going to daycares. And that's what we do, and that's what you need to do. So you can compete, and it's fair. Competition's fine. Level the playing field. And Miami-Dade, a couple people, they would talk to me like, well, we'll have them stop calling you, and we're almost special. We're just really interested in you, coming back to the school. Well, I'm never going to come there. Okay, click. You are not a part of the solution. Not a part of our solution. And it's tough to stomach that. And people that don't like complaints, you're going to continue to have your student counts go down. You got to break some eggs, guys. Miami-Dade did it, and they got massive results, which we're going to get into. So, also, we give a lot of feedback on what parents are saying, coming and going. That's for use for the improvements for next year. So the last big component that we did was training. And once again, the Miami-Dade did it. They brought a couple thousand people together. We ended up training 800 of them. And it was, these are not the exact courses, but we trained them on how to deal with difficult parents and how to become a parent's advocate instead of, in dealing with conflict. And the one thing we heard from the participants was it created more joy in their lives because they knew that they were being protected, and it increased their culture. So we did some team building, role playing, interactive gameology to let them deal with these difficult situations, become the parents' advocates. And this really created a lot more joy in their day-to-day affairs because they knew that leadership was supporting them. They also had some additional tools. And I really appreciate, they do this every single time to me. I don't really know what all the slides look like every time because they change them on me because I think it's funny to mess with me, I think, and make me change it up. But thank you for putting my book cover on there. We got the new book. So, and that really has a lot of these fundamental steps and rules on how to deal with difficult family members and how to recruit students. So it's in there too. And we base a lot, and we wrote the book based on this training. So, the other thing that we do with the training is, I'm sorry, I have to pause. They did it to me again. Kayla, they did it to me again. So we use gamification, interactive training. It's exhausting. A 3-hour course. Ugh. So, but I don't know who did this. I'm gonna find out who put this this role play right here. We do role play, but you can't do role play sitting down. This is a coffee break. What this is a coffee break. Role playing, and I have a whole nother course to go check out on how to role play. You can't role play sitting down. You can't role play calmly. It has to create stress. If it doesn't create stress, it doesn't simulate real world conditions. So when you do training, you've got to make it, interactive. You try to make it fun. You want to do it to help build the teams up, and you get so many awesome things out of that. But you can't do role play sitting down. I don't know who did this, but you're going to find out. And man, God, they give me I never know what they're going to put in these slide decks sometimes. So very funny, very funny. So, okay, but they did add one interactive role play. This is what role playing, look, people standing, people debating, people getting after it. On our website, we have a video of interactive people yelling at themselves to kind of give you another example of it, so you can look at that. And like I said, we trained 800 people, principals and front desk people. We chose to do them separately in this case. Sometimes it depends on the culture of the district. But we trained 400 principals one day in 2 3-hour sessions, and then we trained front desk people the next day in 2 3-hour sessions, 400. And it was interactive. We had a bunch of moderators to break it up so we could do all these active sessions. But one of the key components is making sure that you're working collaboratively with whoever you're using. And I hate this picture. I hate it. And I put this in here and I hated it. And then I put this one in here because I thought it was funny because I have a picture of Adrian over here. And maybe you saw this and that's why I did the role play. But that's not really what I'm talking about either. I think this fits the bill, right? It's got to be joyful. It's got to be fun. You've got to work together as a team. Bring everybody along for the ride. And I think that what you're going to see is if you start to think about these global campaigns, you're going to get these kind of results. So we talked about mission. We've gone through activities. And now we're talking about results. And here they are. Right? The district and not just through our efforts, through their efforts, and this collaborative response and this leadership team, increased their budget $35 million. Yeah, they got $1 billion plus budget, but $35 million ain't nothing to sneeze at. And overall, they stopped the slide of the enrollment going down. They didn't just level it out, but they brought some 4,700 students back. The grassroots activity alone, through statistical science and tracking, no guessing, brought 4.7 million back to the district. And the people that got trained, and we did a train the trainer, they said the word they used was more joy, more improvement. So I've given you a mouthful of training on this stuff, and I've broken it down into 3 fundamental blocks, which are, look, internal programming, internal cleaning up, awesome sauce, Miami-Dade, great case study on that. Collaborative effort working with us in this case, where we did all that grassroots activities, door knocks and phone calls and daycares and competition. And they yielded massive results and improved their team morale, which I know is important, because if you can't keep your team happy, you can't get more people to work for you, you're going to have a hard time training the babies too, right? So I think that what we saw is in this particular case study was even though the grass was greener on the other side of the fence in some cases, at some point that cow not going to like the grass that's right there because you present it to them in a nice way and it's awesome sauce, and they crushed it. I think that that's it right now. And I kind of, like, my instinct was, can I take questions? But this is a recording. I can't take any questions right now. But you're always welcome to email us or anybody on our team. And I'd love to answer questions. I love to do this. I believe in you so much. I just want you to crush it. So I really appreciate it. And keep being awesome. And yeah, just keep being awesome. Thanks. Bye.